Hey guys, in this one, I'm gonna walk you through my personal 5 favorite back exercises. The first exercise that I absolutely love is going to be a pull-up, more specifically what I like to call a dead hang pull-up. A few things that you wanna keep in mind when you're doing a dead hang pull-up is you're gonna wanna make sure that at that bottom position, you're really letting the scapulas protract and almost literally dead hang at the bottom, like going almost limp, but still keeping a little bit of muscular engagement there. This is going to ensure we get a deep stretch within the back and engage a lot of musculature. From there, then you can retract the scapula as the first part of your movement and then pull yourself up to the bar. If you've never done these, do note it's going to be harder than the traditional pull-ups that you're used to, so I would definitely encourage you to make it easier in some capacity, whether that's going down in weight, using an assisted pull-up, etc. Exercise number 2 on this list is going to be a narrow grip lat pull down. There's a few reasons that I particularly like the narrow grip. It allows me to get a really nice stretch in the lats, and we know based off the literature that you want to be emphasizing exercises that allow you to cause a lot of tension through that lengthened muscle position. And for me, the narrow grip lat pull down is a nice variation on another vertical pulling like the pull-up that we just did. The narrow grip doesn't have to be used. You might find that you like a little bit of a wider grip or a different handle even. Wherever you get a really meaningful stretch in those lats is going to be likely the right answer for you. One thing I will say is make sure that you're not using a very similar movement pattern to the pull-ups that we've already done. So if you're doing shoulder width pull-ups pronated, maybe you at least switch grips, if not switch widths. Other than that, the same rules kind of apply, getting a really big stretch at the top, allowing the scapulae to again protract, getting that big stretch in the lats. And that's going to set you up for a large amount of growth and success in the lat pull down. All right, for exercise number 3 on this one, we're going to be looking at a deficit row or a bent row. If you have a large degree of mobility and you need to have yourself up on a platform so that you can do a little bit of a deficit and get even more range of motion, that's great. I'm not necessarily flexible enough to need that, so I just do a traditional bent row, and a few same things still apply. You want to make sure that you're getting a stretch at that bottom position, and what that looks like is actually a slight rounding of that upper back, really allowing yourself to get a deep stretch in all the muscles involved. Hopefully now you're kind of picking up on a few key points that the stretch is really beneficial for growing muscle. An advanced tip that you can do on this is if you're no longer able to completely row the barbell all the way up to your chest, you can continue to keep doing the set because again, that stretch position is so important. So you hit failure, no longer able to touch your chest, continue to add reps, and this is a little bit of an advanced intensity technique that you can consider doing. So for the remaining 2 movements, being a machine-based row or a dumbbell row, these are also just variations that you can use to get a little bit more out of your back workouts. They act very similarly to the bent row, but they load the spine in either a different way or slightly less, especially if you're using a chest-supported row, which I highly recommend, especially if you're already loading your spine a lot. One thing to note that's super cool about a chest supported row is because you have that pad there, you're actually able to get an even bigger stretch out there without necessarily having to engage your lower back. So this is a great option if your lower back is already being taxed with other movements. All right, so these are my 5 favorite back movements. Now let's talk about how I would actually put together a back workout to make sure that we're not doing anything redundant and we're getting the absolute most out of our training. I'm on that forever journey to get a wider back and look like I could just fly away at any given time. So I focus a lot on vertical pulling. So exercise number 1 for me in a lot of workouts is going to be some form of vertical pulling, usually the pull-up. Moving on to our second exercise, again, I'm still really seeking lat width. So we do a second lat exercise. What we don't want to do is have a redundant movement pattern because more often than not, that can lead to jump volume. So what I actually do for my second exercise is known as a dumbbell pullover, despite absolutely hating this exercise because it just does not feel awesome. But that's where you grab the dumbbell, laying flat back on a bench, and really get a big stretch and then pull all the way over. Again, this is for my specific needs to hit the lats even more. Next, because by exercise number 3, you're probably starting to get a little bit more gassed, we're going to start to move away from loading the spine. So while you could do a bent barbell row in this instance, I'm going to stick with a machine row, chest supported, so that we can still get a horizontal back stimulus, something that we haven't hit yet, but not necessarily loading the spine or fatiguing the spine through a bunch of flexion. So now we've covered 2 vertical pulling exercises that are different, trying to get back width, 1 horizontal rowing exercise to add a little bit of back thickness and depth there, and we're moving on to the last exercise. One key component of the back that we haven't managed to hit yet, and that is going to be traps in general. So for this, I like to include a shrugging type motion. Because of how the fibers in the traps actually function, you don't get a lot of trap involvement from narrow grip shrugs like this, because the traps actually act to bring the clavicle towards the ear rather than vertically. It has to do with how they actually originate and insert. So one option that can kind of correct for this a little bit is actually doing a wider grip shrug. Be sure you use straps for this, but on a barbell or cables, and this puts the traps in a little bit more of an aligned position, and you're able to actually get the traps involved there. So this is a way that we've been able to hit a non-redundant amount of exercises, hit the entire back. From there, I might move into bicep and forearm work after that, but in terms of just back growth, these 4 exercises in this order is going to be a great starting place for you. Try it out, and then you can adjust as necessary.